Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's number one financial investment show, Wall Street Hackers with Peter Bennett. Peter is bringing to us some really fun, entertaining stories, as well as his stock tip investment for the week. This will be his final show of the year, of which we will resume in January 2024. So I hope that you keep a look at our scheduling on podtv.tv for when. You can also catch us on Amazon and Roku. Peter has spent many years on Wall Street. Prior to that, he received his bachelor's in Florida. And then he went to NYU and received his law degree. I think I got that right. No, wait. But anyway, he's worked in Wall Street for a long time, and I apologize for the confusion. I'm traveling this week thanks to Peter because I invest well. I can do well. So everyone, help me welcome Peter to
Well,
our
thanks, Jim.
show. And
You,
Peter, I'm sorry for that.
no,
I'm a
don't
little
worry about it. You know
confused.
what? If you don't have my credentials in writing, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, if you don't have it in front of you, how are you going to remember, which schools I went to, But anyway, she
I
was told
usually
to have an
do,
MBA,
but
a
I'm
law
just
degree, and a BA in economics. So, but that's
right.
fine. So,
But
okay.
he worked a long time up in Wall Street, and but that's where you're
Don't
bringing your
worry, you were close enough.
experience, right?
That's
So
fine.
Peter, tell us how things are going this week, and I'll let you have the show.
Sure, of course. Thanks. And we'll see you on the panel discussion too. Of course, you can stay on
That's
or
right.
whatever you do. So, first, this will be the last Wall Street Hackers for this season. We're coming up to the holidays, and but we'll be back January 4th on Thursday or January 6th on Saturday, depending on your distribution channel. You can start seeing a new episode, and we're on most weeks during the year. So we always start with the markets, and usually I do the quote of the week first, or the quotes of the week. But in this case, I'm going to do the quotes of the week first because they so aptly describe what is going on in the markets, in of course, our opinion. So first, this is from Monday's Barron's Daily. Quote, after Friday's strong payroll data, markets delayed the pricing of the first Fed cut to May from March. Strangely, stocks also advanced, perhaps because traders don't expect Fed rates to hurt the economy that much. They go on to say, unemployment remains historically low, wage growth and service inflation are still relatively hot, and on the other hand, it's also not clear how much past rate hikes are going to weigh on the economy in the next few months. When inflation started picking up 2 years ago, central banks thought they knew what was happening and that it would be transitory. Now that inflation is coming down, they are more humble, and that is the situation, basically. So I guess I'll comment on that first. I wasn't going to, but first of all, the Fed has no idea what's going to happen, and nobody does. But for the last 2 years, they've been basically wrong. But yet the market reacts all the time to their littlest comment when they haven't even been on track, and they've been so far off for 2 years. And then the other comment was from a Kiplinger magazine this month. It's from Liz Ann Saunders, who is the chief investment strategist at Charles Schwab. And she said, it's hard to envision the Fed shifting from the most aggressive tightening cycle in 40 years to cutting rates. They already have a credibility problem after holding rates so low for arguably so long. So, of course, these are quotes that I agree with, but that's basically what the market looks like. So let's look at some hard data. What's coming out just in the last week or two? Layoffs and discharges remain in the historically low range. In October, 1.64 million workers were let go for whatever reason, but down from 1.68 million in July and August, and down from 1.7 to 1.8 million range in early 2023. So wait a minute. Less people are being discharged than before. Where's that progress? And then another story. Friday brought news that non-payroll increased by 190,000 in November. The big surprise was the drop in the unemployment rate to 3.7% from 3.9%. So unemployment had in recently been 3.4%, which was a 50-year low. So now they brought it up to 3.9, but now it's going 3.7. That's not a lot of progress. So with already totally uncontrolled government spending, to say the least, low unemployment, still over 9 million unfilled jobs. And by the way, the U.S. workforce not growing a whole lot, and likely prices in energy increases. I don't know if it'll be next year, but we're heading for a real problem with energy. And I think in the next 2 to 3 years, if not next year, we're going to see some big increases because oil and gas companies cannot keep underinvesting by 50% or let's say 40% and just to maintain and where they are 50% of what they used to maintain, invest before 2015. So sooner or later, this is going to hit the energy market, and reserves keep going down. The U.S. reserve itself is at this 40-year low in terms of the strategic petroleum reserve, but also just general reserves around the world. You can't keep sucking oil and gas out of projects and then not invest because they're 5 to 7 year projects, but sooner or later it's going to catch up. So the Fed has a bottom line there is the Fed has a long and difficult battle, very likely to get to 2% or even very close to 2%. And that leads to a new conclusion, which I have. It's a new theory. Now, everything I'm going to say in the disclaimer part when we're talking about the investment of the week applies here. Nobody knows. If I know, I just put all the money on black. I'd bet it all on an option. No, you can't be sure of anything. This is a market and has different opinions. But my new theory is the Fed is kind of stuck in the middle now. So it cannot lower interest rates a lot. Next year, the market is pricing that in, and it's not going to be happy about that. Because if it does, it's going to stimulate the economy. It's going to accelerate the market, and therefore their fight of inflation will be damaged or lost. So I cannot see a whole lot of decreases. As a matter of fact, if I had to call it, and this is again random opinion, I would guess that they're going to do one maybe as they get closer to the election. Just one would be my guess, and then I'm not even sure of that. And who knows? On the other side, the Fed cannot raise interest rates much more because they're afraid they're going to crush the economy and cause a severe recession because they're not sure of the effect, how long it will take. So sort of the bottom line is the Fed has been saying for a long time, higher for longer. And Wall Street Hackers has been saying for a long, long time, years, I guess, not so high is what we call it, not so high for longer. But now my new expression might be not so high for much, much longer. And not a big change, but the point is, my new theory is the Fed's going to just keep things level. And it's probably content to do that because they'll let inflation eat away at buying power. And as a matter of fact, you'll see what inflation has done to 401ks is one of my most interesting points in the last 2 years. It's pretty dramatic. So let's say the market stays flat or goes up maybe 4%, 5% next year. Nobody's making any progress, and inflation continues to eat at a lot of companies, and their balance sheets are getting worse. So it's such a slow process. It's a slow grind. I think in the end, they won't go with the no pain, no gain theory. They want no pain. So in the end, it'll just be very protracted. So my guess is maybe 4% growth in the stock market. So the bottom line here is you have to understand the macro and the micro picture to pick any company. You can't pick a company or investment in a vacuum, but I believe the macro environment will be very stable, maybe up 5%. Especially I'm nervous about the beginning of next year because we might see, I'm guessing we're going to see a bit of an increase into January and then maybe a fall. But again, I am ultimately buying businesses when I buy a stock. I want to buy fundamentals. I want to buy an income stream, like a dividend growth stock or a nice yield or a company that's going to grow and appreciate that I feel is very safe in any environment. So that's the goal of Wall Street Hackers. So 5 most interesting stories of the week. There there's some interesting stories every week. Sometimes it's hard to pick out the right one. Number one, social media junkies. 1/3 of US teenagers say they, quote, almost constantly use at least one of the top 5 social media sites. 93% go into YouTube. The next one down is China-owned video sharing platform TikTok, which is very controversial. That'd be another discussion. 63% go into TikTok. 63%. Snapchat, 60%. Meta, 59%. Facebook, 33%. So, okay, that's pretty worrisome anyway, but wait till you hear the numbers on how many visits there are daily. Any kid who's using social media, and most kids are, here's their averages. 71 daily visits to YouTube, 58 to TikTok, 51 daily visits to Snapchat, 47 daily visits to Instagram, and 19 to Facebook. That is staggering. That's 246 average visits for our youth to these 5 sites, and it doesn't even count other sites. Now, this should be of great concern to parents, and I'm sure it is to many, and also to educators, because that will be the subject, indirectly, this will relate to the subject of our panel discussion, which is what the heck is happening in our education system and what we can do about it. That will be after the break. So, oh my gosh, it is a bit of a crazy world right now. Another footnote on this. So not only that, but what is on YouTube and Facebook and all this stuff right now. So here's a scary example. TikTok influencers lowered the bar, but recently by praising Osama bin Laden's letter to America. And dozens of influencers praised it, and it was basically the justification for the 9/11 event. And basically, so one TikTok influencer said, named Adkins, she has 12 million followers, and she posted that we should watch this letter from Osama bin Laden, and she got over 100,000 likes on that post. So that's worrisome. And again, we'll be talking about education. Next interesting story of the week. I mentioned this coming up. 401ks and pensions, how they've been decimated basically by inflation in the last 2.5 years. This is either surprising or maybe shocking as to the values. So on an inflation-adjusted basis, and keep in mind, the S&P basically was flat for the last 2 years and also for the last 6 months. And so if the market's going nowhere, inflation is eating away at values. And also, yes, some people did well if they happen to own some of the Magnificent Seven. Wall Street hackers did have some interests in there. But other than that, the average went with the market. And the average is pretty worrisome for people who are trying to save for retirement and pension plans. So based on a real inflation-adjusted basis, the loss for 401ks was $33,200, or 24.8% of the value. Pension plans did a little better than the IRAs and 401ks, but pension plans lost $3.3 trillion, or 12% of real value. Not exactly great performance, against the real inflation numbers, and it is worrisome. Hopefully, this won't continue. Number 3, and this was a very interesting story, I thought, and it was hardly in the news at all. I've only seen it in one place, but I'm sure it was covered somewhere. So it's about China, and it's kind of a significant story. So here's a quote from the New York Post. While the world is distracted by war in the Middle East and Ukraine, a Stalin-like purge is sweeping through China's ultra-secretive political system. And this was reported by Politico. The unexplained disappearance and removal of China's foreign and defense ministers, Both Xi loyalists who were handpicked and elevated mere months ago are just two examples, and now they're missing. The purge also includes generals in charge of China's nuclear weapons program and some of the most senior officials overseeing the Chinese financial sector. These are all loyalists from the inner ring of Xi's own clique. So they go on to say, I don't know how to even say it, but they even talk about the danger of war and regime stability, and also an attack on Taiwan as a distraction. Good golly. And so a few footnotes from a different article on this. It says, and maybe this is probably the cause for this potential purge, a decade under Xi has resulted in a dangerously out of balance Chinese economy, in asset bubbles and unsustainable debt. Yeah, they're going through some issues in China. I have not invested in China for basically ever for a lot of reasons, including moral reasons, but also I just had no confidence in them in the last few years. And the final point there is deep-pocketed Chinese are moving their hundreds of billions of dollars out of the country this year. So the money's flowing out of China, which it isn't supposed to do anyway under rules. But people are nervous about what's going on in China, and there's a lot going on. Interesting story number 4, back in the U.S., and we will see where this go. But one of Biden's closest business associates will be testifying before the House Oversight Committee in a closed hearing in January. His name is Mr. Sherwin, and he has worked with Biden family members in setting up shell companies and moving money around the world and transferring millions of dollars. And so it will be interesting to see what he has to say. My first guess is he won't protect himself with immunity or, by declaring the fifth or anything, because I don't think he has any libel. He was just helping them out. And he probably will just protect himself by being honest about what he did. So a lot may come out about what's been going on with the Biden family. But if you look at somebody who set up, I believe it was 20 shell companies, the Bidens, and also the fact that President Biden sent 7,000 emails under pseudonyms, you think, well, there might be something uncovered there. So we will see what is uncovered. But a few side notes on that. Number one, besides the fact that it should be an interesting hearing, if the corrupt liberal mainstream media, which is my biggest gripe, I'm not all liberal or conservative. I'm kind of like most Americans, somewhere in the middle, but depends on the issue. But the thing is, the liberal mainstream media is so corrupt, they don't cover stories. They basically just go with their narratives. So, but the thing, and this is my point here, they have hurt the liberal causes in the Democratic Party probably inordinately, because if they had actually said some of these stories to some of the Americans who don't have any other news sources, President Biden probably would not be most likely the candidate, and the Democrats would probably have developed a new candidate. They do not have a lot of really strong candidates, even if Biden were to resign. And plus, I think the way it's working, I said this a while ago to somebody I know too, who was complaining, why are they moving so slowly, the Republicans? Because that person was definitely Republican, and they were in favor of, just going after Biden. I said, well, if the Republicans are smart, they're going to take their time, because the later this gets, the harder it is going to be to bring in another candidate for the Democrats. So I think they're moving slowly, and maybe that's even why they have the closed meetings right now and insisting on closed, because now they can bring out all the data, then they can present it to the public openly. So finally, on a much lighter story, because there's a lot of issues here in those stories, scientists have discovered a dolphin with fingers. They have discovered a dolphin that appears to possess a pair of thumbs. Interestingly, I didn't know this, but dolphins, whales, and porpoises possess human-like forearms and vestigial fingers, but they are encased inside their flippers, except in this one case, when this dolphin has been now spotted by a team in the ocean. Sorry, I've got this near Greece, off the coast of Greece. And so they've seen this dolphin twice now, which has thumbs. And my humorous note is on this story, Flipper the dolphin would definitely say thumbs up. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll come back with the investment of the week and the discussion of the week. See you soon. Kim. And we're back. So what to do, pretty much the same for the last 2 years. Own energy and especially pipelines. And I'll mention my favorite is MPLX, without a doubt, my biggest allocation. I love it, high dividend. But this week, that's not the pick. But MPLX is a winner in my book in terms of it looks great in so many ways. So the second thing is own dividend stocks. As our favorite chart shows, over 50 years to 2022, dividend stocks outperformed the S&P 500 by about double, and dividend growth and initiators tripled the performance of S&P 500. So, everybody has to have their specific allocations to stocks based on whatever their risk tolerance is. But the bottom line is own dividend stocks, and it'd probably do better in the long run, and finally be cautious, especially heading into 24. We'll see what happens, but I don't see a huge upside for this market that's valued. And so dividend investment of the week next. So, because I have to keep moving, we always run out of time on the show. So disclaimers, this is for entertainment only. No guarantees, of course. These are only our opinions, and consult your financial advisor. So the investment of the week is Cisco. And I'm small allocation right now, but only because I'm being cautious in terms of adding positions because I'm concerned about 24. We'll see what happens in the beginning of 24. But I like Cisco for a number of reasons. The negative is I always look at the beta of a company, which is the correlation to market is 0.8. So if the market doesn't do well in the first half or at some point next year, Cisco's probably going to be pulled down with it. But this is the kind of long-term dividend stock that I like. It's got a 3-point-something% dividend, but its cash flow is 13, so it has a cash flow yield of 7.6%. So it has money to keep investing or giving out to shareholders. It's not a great cash flow compared to maybe the MLPs, but it's still solid, and they have a great history of growth. And so TD Ameritrade says dividends have been growing 5% annually each year for the last 5 years on average, and also earnings per share have been growing 7% annually for the next 5 years. So I'm going to keep an eye on this, but this is the kind of a stock I say, okay, you know what, 3.5% with growth potentially, if it's like the historical growth, I'll take it. So again, for small allocation to that, and I'll keep an eye out for it. By the way, in the next season, I'll start talking about 3 mutual funds, which I'm buy. I prefer to pick my own stocks, but for diversity, and I like them going in. So we'll be talking about 3 small allocations to mutual funds. Okay, we better get to the panel discussion of the week. So what happened to our education system? Oh my gosh. And what can we do about it? Hey, Kim. So quick background. This is really just so evident when you look at it, and so pathetic or sad, you'd say. It's just amazing what's been going on for decades. Okay, background. First of all, 10th graders in the U.S. just saw their math scores on an international test fall 13% compared to 2018 and now they're 18% lower than in 2003. U.S. kids were outscored by students in dozens of countries around the world. And I thought we had a lot of investment in education. Where's that going? A recent study showed results such as 23% of young Americans, and now we're getting to history, which is another area. It's just sad besides math. A recent survey showed results such as 23% of young Americans who are aged 18 to 39 thought that the Holocaust was either a myth or greatly exaggerated. 23%. And even if you say, okay, maybe they could think that, 12% of kids aged 18 to 39 have never heard the word Holocaust. They don't know what it means. What's that word mean? It's like, is this, what country is this, in terms of historical education? And if you don't believe that, 8th graders recently scored historically low on U.S. history and civics tests. According to this report, 87% could not explain major themes in U.S. history, major events, major people, and major ideas in U.S. history. Finally, we get to college level. So in colleges, radical professors from the far left political spectrum have now turned elite institutions into anti-American indoctrination factories. They're pushing and allowing anti-Americanism, cancel culture, gender madness, and embracing racial discrimination in pursuit of diversity, and basically these theories that are separating people out and creating a lot of hate and also division within our country and within our schools. So I'm a little concerned about where we're going on education. Kim, what is going on with the education system and what can we do about it? Oh, I can't hear you, Kim.
There we go. I couldn't agree with you more, Peter. It is very, very concerning about the educational system. The decline has started a long time ago, and I'm willing to bet with you that majority of the students do not know our Pledge of Allegiance or, think about it, because they took all of this pride out of our schools. And when you remove pride from even your educational system, you're going to remove the desire to want to learn more. Mm-hmm. And I think it all began when they started removing the Pledge of Allegiance and, singing the U.S. song, it's disappointing because you go to any other country and they know their anthem, they know their songs or their pledges, and they sing them and they recite them. So I think when you take a lot of pride out of our educational system, you remove the desire to learn more.
It's so clear. How can you have a society where you're teaching kids to hate your own country? And what does that mean? And what are they trying to create? Are they trying to move us towards a communist or socialist, society? And maybe they are, maybe they don't know what they're doing. It's in the name of equity. They're teaching these theories that in the end will destroy the country potentially and cause us to be more like a South American dictatorship or Russia or some country where, socialism led to communism and where it's basically autocracy. And even, some people say, oh, look at the few countries. I'll just address this briefly. Some say, oh, look, it finally succeeded. Socialism has failed hundreds of times around over thousands of years in small experiments, large experiments. The Puritans tried it and it failed miserably and they almost starved. But so they point to the Scandinavian countries. But the Scandinavian countries so far are doing okay. By the way, their tax rates are lower than the U.S. tax rates now. So they're less socialist in a way anyway. But they have so much resources in terms of farmland, oil, and they're a rare, rich country, and dictatorship works in, Saudi Arabia or kingship, whatever. But the point is, a few countries can get away with it for a limited amount of time, but it's not a recipe for success. So my conclusions are 3. 1, the U.S. better do something about this to turn the tide, because every year more of these people are going to become voters, and they're going to be ignorant of the greatness and the flaws of America. You know, I mean, there are flaws in our history, but we've overcome them in many ways, and we keep moving forward. But now, if they don't understand anything about history, we could devolve into anything, and that could be really dangerous for society. Number two, the U.S. government subsidizes colleges in 16 different ways, and there are so many improvements they could make in the system. Number one, my biggest gripe for years is the college loan system, which is really just a huge subsidy to the colleges. So and devastates the middle class, because the middle class student could not take $250,000 in loans out from a private institution. The only reason they can get this money and go into debt potentially for decades is because they can get the money from the system, and the system is now the government gives them the money to go into debt for the rest of their lives, and then it flows into these elite colleges that have increased tuition massively compared to tuitions. First of all, a massive in tuitions based versus inflation. I mean, they're soaring. And you look at the waste on the college campuses. Oh, let's build a big building. Let's have our teachers teach 2 classes sometimes. We'll pay them 6 figures to teach 2 classes, and they'll do research on some subject. It's like, fine. If you want to do the research, fine, but that's all coming out of the middle class. And then the other thing is the tax treatment is just one other example of the endowments. And people are starting to talk about that because of this recent problems, concern of Congress with some things going on campus. It's about time they started looking at campuses. But so these endowments, a lot of them act like hedge funds. They're giant pools of money. They keep growing tax-free. So why does the middle class or even a corporation have to pay taxes? And these things are building gigantic funds. And then also they pay excessive amounts to their administrators, the presidents. So people criticize head of a S&P 500 company. Oh, you're getting so much. But these people are getting paid a lot of money too. Not as much as them, but all in the backs of the middle class. And so finally, I go back to the elementary schools. There is only one solution here, and that's to create free market competition. It works in the free market. That's why America is as rich as it is. I mean, compared to Russia, look, Russia has natural resources. Look how poor their people are. The difference is we have competition. They have corruption. I wish Putin would realize that and change the system. But so charter schools, this is such a perfect example. In Florida, they initiated charter schools. They've been pushing charter schools more and more, and even recently more. So charter schools have pushed up not only the level of Florida students is so much higher now. They used to be one of the bottom in the country. Now they're one of the top. And in terms of college admissions, in terms of scores, everything. And also the interesting thing is public schools got much better. Why? They had to compete with the charter schools. So this would help minorities all over the country, people in cities where, whatever their race, if they have lousy schools, give the individual a choice. And that would be where we're running out of time. As always, it was a good discussion, Kim. I wish we always had more time, but we get it in there, 35 minutes or so. So as Kim always says, get healthy and get wealthy. We will be back in early January. Thanks for watching, and see you soon. Bye, Kim.
Yes, thank you. Happy holidays, and
Thanks.
Look forward to 2024. Take care.
Bye-bye.